So basically, this is my dad's old GTX 1080 Ti, a graphics card that came out way back in 2017. If you don't know what a graphics card is, it's basically the part of your computer that decides what color every pixel on your screen is going to be, and it does all the calculations to make the graphics on your monitor look really nice. That's a gross oversimplification, but it doesn't really matter for this video. What I want to do today is take this apart. I want to take the thermal paste that connects the actual silicon to the cooler and replace it with new thermal paste and see if that affects the performance at all, because I think that would be fun. So I thought I'd record the process of me throwing the 1080 Ti into my test system and use this opportunity to discuss some things, mainly test system specs and methodology. This test system has an i5-14600K on a Gigabyte Z790 Gaming X-AX motherboard with 32 gigabytes of DDR5 6400 speed cast latency 32 memory. If you don't know what any of that means, it's a really fast and new platform that'll allow the graphics card to stretch its legs and really heat up. All I'm going to do in terms of testing is running a benchmark called Heaven 4.0 twice through to record the performance before and after the repaste. So what I thought would be a good idea would be to record the temperatures and fan speeds that the card achieves before I actually go ahead with the repasting process. And those numbers are these, and keep in mind that this is with the stock fan curve that the card ships with. I haven't adjusted anything with the voltage or with the fan speeds or anything like that. And then what I did was I recorded the fan speeds and the temperatures that it achieves with a custom fan curve that basically one-to-one correlates temperature to fan speed percentage. So if it was at 20 degrees, it would be at 20% fan speed. If it was at 100 degrees, it would be at 100% fan speed. And so that's these numbers. Okay, so now we get to do the fun part, which is actually taking the graphics card apart, and I seem to have left my toolkit on the floor. But anyways, this is one of the few cards in my collection that I haven't taken apart yet. My history of graphics cards goes basically, it starts with a very old computer that my dad built a long time ago. I don't even know when exactly, probably like 2010, 2011 was when he started. That build had an i7-920, which was one of the first generation Intel Core CPUs, and it also had a GTX 670, which is an old-ass graphics card. That one, yes, I did take that one apart, yes, because it was old and dusty as heck, and I was like, yeah, this thing's past its warranty period, I might as well just take it apart, I don't see why not. The card has cooled down enough by now to take apart, which is probably obvious, considering the fact that I'm, doing it. But that was the first computer that I used, was that one with the i7-920 and the GTX 670. My dad built his computer very shortly thereafter, or, he gave me that one, to replace an Optiplex, I think, that had like integrated graphics or something, and that was what I first used. That was my pre-actual real official gaming days though. That was just when I played like CD games of like, there was one Care Bears game that I remember very distinctly, and another Barbie one that I also remember very distinctly, and these were just like on CDs. You would stick them in a CD player and play them on the computer, and it was a trip. Those games were awesome. This appears to be on a nut, so I will need to not lose that nut and remember where it goes. The order of things is a little complicated, but after that my dad upgraded his computer. What he initially had in it was an i7-8700K and this very GTX 1080 Ti. That was a very exciting build for him, I'm sure. But at some point, RTX happened, and my dad was like, yo, I want an RTX card. But that was the, 20 series. The 20 series really sucked. The only one that was was the 2080 Ti. And that was $1,200 at the time, and no one wanted to spend $1,200 on a graphics card. So he ended up getting a 2080 Super, and putting that in his computer instead. And then he gave me this 1080 Ti, which went into the computer with the i7-920. And that I used for an extraordinarily long time, until like 2019, when I was talking to one of my friends, and he was like, yo, I'm trying to sell some PC parts if you're trying to upgrade your computer. And I was like, yeah, I mean, which parts are you selling? And he said, everything except a graphics card. And I was like, how convenient. The only good thing in my computer is the graphics card, because that was the 1080 Ti. And so I bought from my friend a case, power supply, motherboard, CPU, RAM, cooler for $250? Huh? He clearly made no money off of that, but I respect it huge. That's a huge bestie. Let's take this little SLI finger cover off, why not? I haven't actually watched any tutorials or anything on how to take this card apart. The only thing that I've seen was one David Does Tech Stuff video, where he did take it apart, but he didn't exactly go into detail or anything. He repasted his and found zero difference, and in fact he managed to make it worse, which you'd think would make my confidence shake a little, but nothing can shake my confidence. I'm completely unshakable. Parts of it are pretty definitely screwed down, so I think the next step is actually going to be to take off the back plate. I didn't want to take off the back plate because there's a lot of thermal pads under here that I would rather not break. But I think you just kind of ream on it because it's held on by that thing as well, yes. The little LED on there. Okay, sweet. So there's backplate part 1 and backplate part 2. Okay, that's fun. It's actually just in 2 pieces. EVGA, why? Oh, okay. There's a dead bug on there. Oh. Oh, looks like you've pretty definitely got to get these screws, which you can barely see. But there are some spring screws, some spring lock, spring trap screws. Get that in frame. This is goofy. What a process. So there's going to be these little fan connectors. I guess there's one for each fan because they wanted to go super overkill again. So what's happening here is something rather worrying. Yeah, okay. The entire ass housing for the connector decided that it wanted to come off instead of freeing the connector, which is probably fine. I can probably just slip it back on. But good golly, okay. Here's this beastly cooler unveiled. Oh, look how heavy it is. Oh, look how big. Oh my gosh. 2017, by the way. But anyways, it's time to clean the old thermal paste off of the core, which I'm doing just with some isopropyl alcohol and a Q-tip. That worked well enough. Good with that. The great thing about isopropyl alcohol, which is what we're using as a cleaning solution for this cooler and the dye, is that it evaporates like practically immediately. So I'll pull out my box of tricks here. I think I'm going to use my big dog, my thermal grizzly, because I'm a huge nerd and of course I have high-end thermal paste to use on stuff. You know, I accidentally smudged the glass panel of my case with my toe a second ago. And I've got to wonder how much you think that would go for. You know what I'm saying? Hiranami toe smudged glass. Name your price and make it high. So there's new paste. What order do I want to do this in? And I kind of just gotta do this and hope that I don't spill thermal paste all over, I guess. We'll just raw dog it, put it back together. I really hope that the thermal paste spread under there is decent. I had to be super careful to keep everything with decent pressure and everything, with it being an even distribution. Okay, emergency over, I think. Ooh, I did it. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think it's right. I think it's all good. Obviously, we won't know until we plug it back in. If there's an LED that doesn't work all of a sudden, then that's a bad sign. And I definitely broke it. But I would never break anything. I've actually never broken anything in the history of ever, which is why I'm so incredibly confident going into something like this, a project like this. This 1080 Ti was originally going to be my sister's, and then her fiance happened to have a 3060, and I was like, that's literally the dream graphics card for this particular computer. Let's just use that one. You know, if I manage to do this in under an hour, I'm going to be very impressed. Especially considering that I didn't break that connector. We'll see though. This was kind of fun. It was kind of super involved though. You see how many, the sheer number of screws I've got to do? It does remind me a lot of the 2080 Super, which I took apart. I need to put that liquid cooler on it. There were a lot of screws involved in that. My dad pretty much only ever buys EVGA cards. The 670 in my first computer was EVGA. This 1080 Ti is EVGA. Aforementioned 2080 Super is EVGA. The 3080 you saw a second ago is EVGA. The 3090 that he bought is EVGA. And I get the feeling that that's a pretty substantial part of why he hasn't upgraded this generation. EVGA just isn't making cards anymore. So if there's no EVGA 4080 Super or 4080 why would you bother, you know? I don't have a 40 series card for basically that exact reason. Not really. I'm not an EVGA stan. I think they're cool. They made some of the nicer looking cards for sure, but I don't have that experience of, oh my goodness, they replaced my old dead card with a new, even better, faster one. Okay. The freaking reverberation from that shook me so hard. Okay, and just like that, it's done. Boom. Repasted. That was super easy. Nothing went wrong. Nothing could have gone wrong. I'm Hiranami Computer. Definitely not recording this weeks later with a different microphone, don't worry about it. We can see that after repasting the card and giving it a few heat cycles to cure a little bit, the stock fan curve has improved by this much. And with the custom fan curve, it's honestly even more impressive. It has improved by this much. Did it affect clock speeds or scores all that much? Not really, but that's sort of to be expected. I did this mostly for fun and to see if I can make the card quieter, which it noticeably is. So what did we learn from this? What sort of lesson can we take away from this experience? Well, if you have a graphics card that was looked after very well for almost 7 years, you might not get the greatest benefit from taking it apart and repasting it. But if you're bored and want to undertake a project that will make a still very usable piece of tech slightly more usable, well, the benefits aren't zero. There were some solid, beyond margin of error gains to be had in both noise and thermals. With that, I've been Hiranami. Subscribe to my YouTube channel.